Deebo Samuel, back to the 49ers. What do you guys think about that? Because George Kittle's talking about it. George Kittle even might be hinting at it. And I think that there might be a right price for San Francisco and Deebo Samuel to make this work out. Obviously not a guarantee. But first, before we get to that, Rise of the 49ers quote of the day, I have to share this with you guys. Tom Brady actually said this in the AMC series. I don't think I could have been what I was if I grew up rooting for the Jets. That's a zing right there. Anyway, moving on to the news of the day. Have a listen to George Kittle during the Super Bowl.
This is for Niners fans. Hey, if a rebuild year got us 13 wins and a win in the wild card, that's pretty good. It's only going to get a little bit better from that. And all the boys are coming back again. And who knows, we might add some past friends.
Wow, who we talking?
I don't know. I hung out with Debo last night. That was fun.
You like that?
I love Debo. Are you kidding
You want
me?
him back on the Niners?
I love Debo. That's all. I love Debo.
We'll keep it at that.
So we'll keep it at that with George Kittle, but Christian McCaffrey delved a little bit further into the topic with Kay Adams. Here's Christian McCaffrey on a potential reunion with Deebo Samuel.
We're the leading receiver. I was talking about like, these catches. Leading receiver last season. Some moves going to have to be made, right? We're talking, there's trade rumors. Obviously, like Deebo is an interesting name that I keep hearing linked back. Would you welcome that? Is that even possible?
Debo's one of my favorite guys I've ever played with.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, I love. We all love Debo. Our whole staff loves Debo. All of the players on the team love Debo. We love Debo.
But you know, like people like leave. Can you come back? Like, is it he would be welcome back, open arms? Like, that would be great.
I think, yeah. There's no question that he would be welcome back.
What do you miss most about him?
Man, he has such good energy. You know, he's somebody that when the ball's in his hands, you can see a lot of times the fear in defenses, and he's just such a great component, or he was such a great component to our offense because you can get him the ball in so many different ways, and he's like an enforcer on the offense in ways. You know, he'll run through your face. He can catch the ball. He can run the ball. He can run any route in the route tree. And, you know, if you want to tackle him, it comes with consequences. So he's just a great guy to have on your team, and appreciated the time I got to play with him.
And maybe there will be more time to play with Deebo Samuel, who turned 30 about a month ago. And, you know, I've seen a lot of negative feedback to George Kittle's speculation or idea online. People saying, oh, the 49ers, they need to be looking forward. They can't be getting older. They need to be getting lighter and faster. And I think so much of this is viewed black and white. People acting like Deebo Samuel would have the same role that he did from 2021 to 2024 for the 49ers as the very centerpiece of their offense. And if they acquired him, I don't think that would be the case. I also don't think that he would come at the price tag of even last year's Washington deal that the 49ers traded over to the Commanders. That was $17 million a year. I think if Deebo Samuel came to San Francisco in 2026, it would be on the 49ers budget, and it would be probably on a discount. Maybe Deebo Samuel was going around San Francisco hanging out with George Kittle and Christian McCaffrey during Super Bowl week and actually saying that he'd be interested in coming back. And if you have a preference to play for a certain place, if you've realized that the grass is not always greener on the other side, then you might be willing to take less money. And on a cost-efficient deal, Deebo Samuel is a football player who could slot in for the 49ers, not as one of their top wide receivers, not as one of the guys who's going to be counted on to stretch the field. That's not Deebo Samuel. He's a versatile football player who, at the right cost, the 49ers would absolutely welcome back with open arms. You know, Deebo did not have a bad season last year with Washington. And we'll get into the financials of this in just a second. But first, I want to set the table. SF Data Niners did a great job with this. He's been a productive player every single time that he's been targeted. I mean, this is an average, obviously, on the right column, but it's all in the green. EPA, expected points added per target. Deebo Samuel has been a plus player in the NFL throughout his entire career. Obviously, 2021 was the year where he just broke the scales offensively and he earned the contract after that. But 2023, Deebo Samuel, that's not that long ago, was productive as well. 2024, down year for everybody around the 49ers building. And yes, I think that the separation issues that Deebo Samuel had were on greater display because he was the featured guy in 2024 after Brandon Aiyuk went down. 2025, he was able to move into more of a screen-based offense with Washington. Cliff Kingsbury was the coordinator, and the yardage went back up. He went back up to 727 receiving yards, 466 yards after the catch, touchdowns up to 5. And you could tell by the average depth of target, it was lower, that the Commanders were running more screens to Deebo Samuel. And I think that it helped that they had Terry McLaurin, that they had other weapons, Diami Brown, those guys downfield. They had other weapons who were taking pressure off of the need to run routes to the intermediate and deep part of the field, and they allowed Deebo Samuel to be the yak weapon that he is. And I think that's a lot of the reason why the yardage went up, while the yards per reception actually went down. You see, he went from 81 to 99 catches in 2025, but overall was a more efficient player. It went from 0.14 expected points added per play. That's a 53rd percentile number, 52.6%, to 0.19, 60th percentile. That put Deebo Samuel in the above average range. Here's what we know about the 49ers. Their biggest deficiencies last year came at the wide receiver position when we're talking about offense. They ranked number 24 in average separation, and they ranked, it's hard to rank them in run blocking, but they didn't run block well on the perimeter. The proof there was in the pudding. The offensive line actually scored well when it came to run blocking for the 49ers in 2025, but they didn't generate good rushing production whenever George Kittle wasn't available. That simply tells you that the wide receivers, minus Brandon Aiyuk, that they had, were not getting the job done. Obviously, the player who hurt the 49ers most in those two facets of the game was Aiyuk himself, because when he was available, back when he was playing football before he abandoned the 49ers building, great separator, great blocker. Aiyuk's presence helped unlock Deebo Samuel. As you can see, the best times for Deebo Samuel here, 2021 and 2023, Aiyuk was on the team for both of them. In 2023, Aiyuk was the X, allowed Deebo Samuel to play the Z, allowed Samuel to do what he did best, because everybody had their distinctive roles on the 49ers offense. When Samuel had to move to be the featured wide receiver for the 49ers after Aiyuk tore up his knee in 2024, that's when we saw the worst production of his career. So the 49ers said, at this price, we'd rather trade him. And they were able to get a little bit of a trade return back for Deebo Samuel. What was it, a 5th-round pick? Not bad. They didn't have to pay the $17 million. Washington was able to eat all $17 million, and now Deebo Samuel's contract is expiring. The 49ers must rebuild or fortify their receiving weaponry. There's no question about it. The weaknesses that I listed, how are they going to attack this? We've discussed some of the possibilities. They could take the most massive swing possible, and they could still miss, but they can still take the swing, and maybe it would hit, but it would depend on the Minnesota Vikings. They could try to trade for Justin Jefferson, right? I think that would move the needle the most in terms of the 49ers offensive weaponry. It'd move the needle the most in terms of views for this YouTube channel. If the 49ers traded for Justin Jefferson, everything would burn down. That would be absolutely crazy. But that would also cost a hell of a lot of draft capital. It'd be contingent on Minnesota's willingness to even trade Justin Jefferson before the season. That actually might not be something that the Vikings, if they ever are interested in doing it, it might not even be possible until the regular season, until sometime before the trade deadline. So that is a pie in the sky scenario that we can briefly discuss, but I don't think that giving more than a couple minutes of discussion time to it right now is all that practical. The 49ers could also go into A-list free agency. Probably, let me give you the list of free agent wide receivers available, or just free agents in general. We can go down the list of free agents and see who's available. But I think as far as young receivers, and maybe I could sort this by position. Yes, I can. Trey Hendrickson at the top of the list. Look, Deebo Samuel is on that list. But I think that we need to sort this by position, because we are here to talk about the 49ers wide receiver room. So Mike Evans at the very top, 12-year veteran in this league. This is sorted by what players made last season. Christian Kirk, obviously Deebo Samuel. I'm trying to find Alec Pierce's name on this. And for whatever, it's way down here. So let's sort this by market value. It's going to be a lot easier because this site, SpotRack, has a good way of projecting what these players might make. Pickens at the very top. Dallas is going to use the franchise tag on him. But Jawan Jennings actually ranks second in terms of market value. This shows you how overheated the receiver market for veteran free agents is. Jennings at $22.6 million on the SpotRack approximation of his contract moving forward. Here's Alec Pierce of the Colts, who scored a touchdown against the 49ers. Really fast receiver, only 25 years old, is going to turn 26 here in a little bit, but somebody who can also block, and I think like he would qualify as an A-list wide receiver addition for San Francisco. Wan'Dale Robinson might also fit into what the 49ers want. He's only just now turned 25 years old and will be entering free agency. Probably is going to be a little bit cheaper than Alec Pierce. Deebo Samuel's down at what? Like number 6, number 7 on this list. And his projected market value is $13 million, which I think would be a little bit too rich for the 49ers. I think too rich for anybody who wants a cost-efficient signing. I think that the 49ers, you look at something like 7 to 8 million, maybe with incentives layered on top, then you could start entertaining a Deebo Samuel reunion. But this is where Kittle's comments become interesting. George Kittle seemed to reflect an interest from Deebo Samuel to return to San Francisco. Like, remember where George Kittle said what he did. It was on Radio Row at the Super Bowl. He had just hung out with Deebo Samuel the night before. He's much more likely to hear interest about rejoining the 49ers from Deebo than he is from the 49ers front office, especially if he had just heard from Deebo the night before. He went and put that message out there, maybe for the 49ers front office to hear, maybe to put a little bit of pressure on. But if Deebo is interested in joining or rejoining the 49ers, it stands to reason that he might be willing to play at a relative discount. I don't know that for a fact. I do know that Deebo liked more than one of my tweets this past year. Whenever I would talk about the 49ers locker room and the vibe in there, I would open up my mentions and I would see, Deebo Samuel liked your tweet. I think it was clear that he was still watching the 49ers from afar. And I think that people need to let go of their black and white view of things when it comes to Deebo Samuel and when it comes to anything football related. Just because he's not the same player in his prime that he was in 2021 doesn't mean that he can't still benefit an offense. The problem with Deebo Samuel in 2024 was that the 49ers had him in way too central of a role, and they were already extremely poor when it came to separating, and Deebo Samuel is not really a downfield separator. Deebo Samuel is more of a bulldozer. If you can allow Deebo Samuel to play the bulldozer role, he's still a very effective player, as the statistics last season illustrate. Again, I'll put this back up on the screen. This is from SF Data Niners. They do such a good job going through this on a year-by-year basis. Hopefully this wasn't covered the last time it was up there. If it was, well, you could see it a little bit better now. Here, I could remove the camera from the bottom left. As you can see, bottom right, 0.19 expected points added per target. That is good. That is in the 60th percentile of the league. It's not in the 80th or the 90th percentile like Deebo Samuel was back in 2021. That's what earned him a massive contract. I think something like this, a little bit above average, certainly has him in the discussion for a contract around $10 million a year. If the 49ers can get Deebo Samuel a little bit cheaper than that, they can find a way, because of the familiarity here, because of Deebo's desire to come to the 49ers, if they can find a way for this to be less than that with incentives added on top, it would not shock me for the 49ers and Deebo Samuel to meet a reunion. Now, we can look at the rest of the free agents here, and we could talk about the 49ers' general plan at wide receiver. If you sign Deebo Samuel, that is not the only thing that you are doing if you are the 49ers at the position. I think that should go without saying, but I think that a lot of people undercomplicate this, and they think, oh, 49ers are signing Deebo Samuel. Well, they're just committed to living in the past, and they're not going to do anything else, and they're going to be too slow. They're not going to be productive around Brock Purdy. No, it would be part of a larger package. That's why you would focus on keeping the price reasonable if you're the 49ers. That's why this wouldn't be a $13 to $20 million signing for the 49ers. This would be something that I think you would have to keep under $10 million. Yes, you can continue looking at somebody like Alec Pierce, who I believe is a good blocker on top of the speed that he brings to the table. I think somebody like Wan'Dale Robinson would be a very versatile weapon along the lines of what the 49ers have gotten in the past from the likes of Deebo Samuel. But I think that when you look at the valuations for these receivers, and I could make this a little bit wider up on the screen so we could fit everything, all of the data. When you look at the valuations, that it's a bit nutty at this wide receiver position. I mean, you've got multiple guys, including Romeo Doubs, who I've brought up before. I think that could be a good tier 1A or 1B, maybe tier 2 free agent. I don't think he's at the very top like a Pickens or a Jennings, but a Romeo Doubs, he could be commanding $10 to $15 million a year as well. And as somebody who's just going to turn 26, who's significantly younger than a Deebo Samuel, I think that he could fit very well, especially since he was with Matt LaFleur and the Packers. But you've got a lot of receivers, like a big cluster of receivers who are going to be commanding more than $10 million per year in free agency. The top of this heap, I think, is inflated beyond the 49ers' comfort to pay. For example, I believe that Juwan Jennings wanted $20 million last year based on some of the stuff that I've heard. I think that he wanted a lot of money with a year still left on his contract. The 49ers obviously said, no, we'll offer you less than that. I think they probably offered him in the ballpark of $12 million. Jennings obviously didn't sign that. They instead, were able to satisfy parties for the interim by giving Jennings some more incentives for the 2025 season, but he's now going to be a free agent, and the valuation here on SpotRack is $22.6 million for Juwan Jennings. I think we can all agree that Jennings is somebody who would slot, if he was with the 49ers, would slot best into a wide receiver 2 or 3 role. That's when he's where he's been at his best. The fact that somebody who has been a demonstrated 2 or 3 might command over $20 million on the open market for receivers just goes to show you how crazy these prices are, right? So I would really, really caution people to not put all of their eggs into the basket of free agency when it comes to the expectation of the 49ers solving their separation issues, of solving some of their receiver issues around Brock Purdy. I think that you're going to have to go to the NFL draft if you're the 49ers, maybe even 2 times this cycle. Once with a higher pick, once with a slightly lower pick. But I think you're going to have to go to the NFL draft, and you're going to have to find an instant impact guy if you're going to want to make this work in a quick and cost-efficient fashion. And if you can pair a good pick, somebody like Casey Concepcion, that's the guy that I'm going to bring up over and over again. That's Mike's favorite player in this draft. If you can pair that with a Deebo Samuel signing, cost-efficient signing, and maybe one more vet signing, I don't know exactly who, but we can go through the list again if you guys want. Maybe Kendrick Bourne, he's actually on this list. He wants to come back to the 49ers. But if you can find a way to pick the right guy in the draft with the right explosiveness, and Mike likes Concepcion because he reminds him of Brandon Aiyuk, but you need to have that explosion. You need to have the catch ability. You obviously need the blocking ability. If you pair that with a Deebo Samuel at a cost-efficient price, all of a sudden your wide receiver room is significantly better than it was last season. Remember that the 49ers only had a healthy Ricky Pearsall for 4 games. I think that, when you look at this, are there really any true A-list wide receivers on this list? We can talk about Jennings. We can talk about Pierce, but Jennings is near the top of this list despite being a documented, demonstrated 2 or a 3 for the 49ers. So, yeah, we can talk about a Justin Jefferson trade until we're blue in the face, but the Minnesota Vikings would actually want to have to do that. The 49ers would also want to have to do that. I think that you're relying on Ricky Pearsall if you're the 49ers to be your best separator. And the good news there is that he was damn good before the knee injury in week 4. He was top 6 yards per route run. He was leading the league in a lot of categories, as was the case throughout the stretch run of the 2025 season. The hinge point for this 49ers offense, I think, is going to be Ricky Pearsall. And the reason that it's gone in that direction is because Brandon Aiyuk defected from the team. I mean, they were counting big time on Aiyuk to be both the run blocking presence and the separation presence they needed at the X receiver position. That's why they were so desperate to pay him, and they ultimately paid him $30 million per year entering that 2024 season. They are now going to be getting that money back because Aiyuk walked out on the team. In the more recent picture, that's a big boost for the 49ers. I know large picture, you would have rather had Brandon Aiyuk actually play for this team. But since that's not the case, they get the money back. That could give San Francisco a few extra million. For example, I mean, they gave him a big signing bonus between 20 and 30 million in that 2024 season. They might be able to recoup a chunk of that signing bonus since he has violated his contractual duties by leaving the building. So if they're able to recoup part of that signing bonus, then the 49ers could theoretically have a few extra million to spend for somebody like Deebo to fill in the blanks of this offense. Again, not for a featured kind of Z receiver role that he had. It was even more than a Z receiver role after Brandon Aiyuk went out. It wouldn't be the featured role, at least in an ideal world, for this team and in their vision, in their larger picture vision. I could even get the roster up on the screen. The 49ers would have Pearsall in the X. They'd have somebody like Deebo Samuel filtering in probably as kind of a third receiver. And then maybe you could draft someone this year that could fill in immediately as your number 2 in a similar way to how Brandon Aiyuk was able to fill in immediately in 2020 as a rookie. Of course, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, both knocking on the door of more playing time. They should be at least in 2026. I am ready for some questions. That's a look at the free agent receiver market. This right here is a look at what Tom Brady said on the rise of the 49ers. Very, very good stuff. I don't think I could have been what I was if I grew up rooting for the Jets. By the way, we finished watching that last night. So we were invited to the premiere here in San Francisco a couple weeks ago, but they only played the first couple episodes, or the first episode at the premiere. The remaining 3 we had to watch through YouTube, through AMC. And it got better and better and better. I honestly was blown away by how good Rise of the 49ers was. They're not paying me to say this. I thought that was the best documentary treatment that I had seen of the dynastic 49ers. If I had a critique, and maybe this is not as much of a critique as it is a idea for the future, if they make another one of these, they didn't cover the Cowboys rivalry of the 90s in there. It focused on the 49ers of the 80s. This was about the 80s. I think they even advertised it as such, because there was Super Bowl championship trophies earned in the 81, 84, 88, and 89 seasons. The 49ers won their 5th in the 94 season. The first 4 in the 80s were with Joe Montana as the starting quarterback. The last one was with Steve Young as the starting quarterback. Now, Young was part of the team in the 80s during that back stretch. And the whole quarterback controversy, which I think was beautifully documented by this series, is in there with Steve Young. But what they didn't do is go into against Dallas in 92, against Dallas in 93, against Dallas in 94, and they didn't touch the Green Bay stuff at all. So maybe if the 49ers, and I was telling this to Lombardi herself after we watched it last night. Maybe if the 49ers win another Super Bowl as soon as next year, they can link back with a documentary to the 1994 team, and they could actually expound on the Cowboys rivalry, and they can, the link is easy because Kyle Shanahan was a ball boy in 92, 93, and 94. So I think that you could easily sit down with Kyle Shanahan, connect past to present, but it would be incumbent on the 49ers actually finishing the job and winning a Super Bowl this time. And it's about to get really exciting. In a month, free agency is going to begin. Before then, we've got the NFL Combine. The 49ers, I mean, they already spent a lot of money last year. They're number 4 in spending. They spent as much as they possibly could to have a chance in this 2026 and 2027 season cycle without being in salary cap hell. I think they're in a good spot to add to the football team. I think that they have a very clear idea of where they need to get stronger. And one of the spots is definitely wide receiver, which is why Deebo Samuel would be interested in coming back and why the 49ers at the right price would be interested in having Deebo back. Now, I think that the most likely pitfall to this whole idea is that the 49ers are only willing to offer something in the 5 to 10 million range. And Deebo believes he's still a $13 to $15 million player, $10 to $15 million player. Say the 49ers believe that he's somewhere between 5 and 10, and Deebo thinks he's somewhere between 10 and 15. That may be too large of a gap to bridge to make something work. And Clint Kubiak could bring him into the Raiders, right? That everybody runs this adaptable Shanahan system around the league now. So Clint Kubiak may need a foundational piece with the Raiders. Deebo's about the same age as Pierre Garçon was in 2017 when Garçon signed with the 49ers, and Garçon had played for Kyle Shanahan in Washington. So it's totally plausible to see an older player like Deebo Samuel taking more money like Pierre did in 2017 from a bad team trying to build a Shanahan system like the Raiders. But if Deebo really just wants to go for a ring here to finish his career, then maybe taking a little bit less money is on the table. I don't know. We don't know into the thought process of Deebo Samuel beyond the hearsay evidence provided by George Kittle, who, again, if we want to play that again, and I will right now, again, hinted at a potential Deebo Samuel reunion the day after seeing Deebo and hanging out with Deebo at the Super Bowl. Here we go from George.
Message for Niners fans. Hey, if a rebuild year got us 13 wins and a win in the wild card, that's pretty good. It's only going to get a little bit better from that. And all the boys are coming back again. And who knows, we might add some past friends. Past friends. Past friends.
Wow, who we talking?
I don't know. I hung out with Deebo last night. That was fun.
You like that?
I love Deebo. Are you kidding
You want
me?
him back on the Niners?
I love Deebo. That's all. I love Deebo.
We'll keep it at that.
So that was from George Kittle. Again, the day after hanging out with Deebo. And I think that at the right price, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. That's something that you at least kick the tires on if you are the 49ers. The combination of how they attack the receiver room this offseason is going to be the most interesting thing. Again, there are a few options. There is pure A-list, go for broke trade. Justin Jefferson comes to mind there. But that takes so much to happen that it's obviously not likely. There is sign a B-list kind of guy like Deebo Samuel and then use your very top draft pick on a receiver, plus maybe even one more draft pick on a receiver. I think that that's the most likely plan, is that you go for a Romeo Doubs or a Deebo Samuel. And Romeo might be a better fit for the 49ers than Deebo, to be 100% honest. Romeo's the guy that I brought up initially in this whole thing. So you could go Romeo Doubs and Deebo Samuel if you could find a cost-efficient price for both of them. But again, the veteran receiver market is overheated. So you do a couple of those things if you're the 49ers, and then you also add through the draft, and then you have a more robust room to work with that is going to rank better than number 24 in average separation once the 49ers next take the field. I want to find that 2026 49ers depth chart for you guys. Get this up on the screen. Have a nice look at where all of this might fit. Here we go. We got it. It is ready to go. I made this a couple weeks ago. Oops, I have to add this to our YouTube setup. So here we go. Let's find share screen. All right. A little bit of a hiccup, but we got it up. Almost. Stand by. It is ready. Perfect. So right now, I still project the 49ers have about 13 53-man roster spots. So you look here at receiver, this is where the pickings are the slimmest. Right now, it's Pearsall, DeMarcus Robinson, Jordan Watkins, Jacob Cowing, and Junior Bergen. You know, I don't think all 5 of those guys are going to make the 53, but I have them in on the projection for right now just to make this a passable situation for the 49ers. I think you absolutely have potential room for 3 more receivers to make that 53-man roster. Because you can carry up to 7. You're probably going to carry 6 if you're loaded at that position. But even if it's just 5, then you would be able to kick a couple guys off of this equation just by virtue of who you sign. So Pearsall obviously needs to play that X unless you are able to swing something for Justin Jefferson. But I think that they're confident in Ricky. Health is going to be wealth in that situation. And beyond that, it's open game. It really is for the 49ers. And I think that's super exciting for San Francisco. All right, everybody hit that subscribe button. We didn't even have to pay for subscribers to hit 100,000. YouTube, just hit me up today. They're going to send me the play button, the silver play button. We'll show that off when it does come in the mail. Everybody hit that sub button. We will talk to you very, very soon. Oh, a little bit of a bonus. We could wrap it up with this right here. I almost forgot. I thought I was going to lead the show with it. Forgot to do it. This is where we were today. We'll see you guys soon. We're not even talking today. We're just opening the sandwich.
Go slow. Open it with your thumb, Chef. Don't manhandle it. Like I told Portnoy. Go easy.
Ah, there you have it. Yeah, Chef.
Look at that.
Look at that. Oof. And then the sauce, too. The extra sauce is clutch. Thank you.
Mix sauce for the fries.
But
comes with the fries.
it could go with anything.
I don't know, man.
You know?
Everything tastes like